Hello, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing well. You know, I'm here now. I'm like an hour and a half late, but I showed up. I'm present. So we're going to uh, we're going to listen to Dave LaGreca of Busted Open as he yells about something that got something to do with work rate, and we're going to get into that, and then we're going to get into some of the responses. So it's kind of a lightweight smart tears, kinda. But it's more like a roast, I think. It's probably more of a roast. I think people are gonna be very angry with Dave LaGreca. Let me make sure my audio is good though. Let me make sure my audio is okay because the last thing I need is for the audio to conk out while I'm talking. And because the last thing I need is for the audio to conk out. All right, there we go. So let's get into this. Dave LaGreca was on the Busted Open radio show with Bully Ray. Took about 30 seconds for him to piss people off. So I'm going to play those 30 seconds and let's see what we get out of this. And then we're going to look at some of the responses to this, just because I know that this has been populating my social media for the last few hours. So let's see what Dave LaGreca's got to say. And hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully it's not too stupid. But I saw Bully Ray nodding his head, so he agrees with whatever Dave LaGreca is going to say. And to be quite fair, I'm unfamiliar with what Dave LaGreca is about to say, so like, I didn't listen to this clip beforehand. I purposefully avoided listening to it because I saw so many people complaining about it.
All the time. Take your 5-star matches and shove them up your ass. It means dick. It means absolutely dick. You know what means everything? Jey Uso in that ring last night to start off Monday Night Raw. That is bigger and better than any fuck you match that you can put in the ring on a show. That is the reason that we love pro wrestling, is what Jey Uso was able to do and connect with that audience last night on Monday.
Okay, what was the problem? I don't see what the problem is. What's the problem? He's talking about the audience connection being more important than the match. Yes, we should already know that by now. What's the problem? Is the problem that Dave LaGreca is telling you this? What is the problem? Everybody should know this already. I mean, you can go throughout history, and it's not even people talking about Jey Uso's matches. It's about matches in general. It's about technical proficiency in general. Nobody cares if something is technically better, quote unquote, even though all art is subjective. Nobody cares if something is technically better than something else. What people are attached to are things that they like, or things that they can relate to, or things that make them feel. You know, like, you don't even need to do wrestling. You can just do music. Some people don't like certain music because they can't relate to it. You know, some people don't like certain music because they, you know, they don't see themselves in that situation. They can't respect, the artistry. It has nothing to do with the instrumentals and everything. Somebody could be technically a great instrumentalist, but you don't want to hear their music. You just don't listen to it. You know, somebody could be a great artist, but you'll never read their comic book and you'll never enjoy the artwork that they have because it doesn't make you feel anything. You know, it's just pretty pictures, or it's just, hey, this is a well developed song, but it ain't really speaking to any sort of experience that I have. People like things that go with experiences that they have, you know, and it's something, you know. But it's interesting. So it is what it is, man. This guy seemingly is just telling people the truth. You care about the match because you care about the people in the match. You know? And hmm. It's very bizarre that people will have this problem knowing the history of WWE and knowing the history of, well, you have to know the history of wrestling in general. There's always been a lot of top guys where people have claimed that so and so shouldn't be a top guy because he can't wrestle, or someone else is a better wrestler. That kind of, and none of it matters. At the end of the day, it don't really matter that much. What people care about is, you know, how they feel. Do they want to root for the person in the ring? Do they hate the person in the ring? That person's technical proficiency is not really even relevant, if we being honest. Let's look at some of the responses thing. It seems that the person who quoted this guy, it says Dave LeGreca cook all wrestling fans and AEW marks. Last night, when I skipped past all the wrestling of Monday Night Raw and just watched cinema segments, they were done perfectly. Skipping all wrestling brought joy to me. Casuals don't care about flippy flop. This guy's clearly trolling. All right, he's trolling. We love pro wrestling for cinema segments, not for the wrestling itself. You know, this is pretty high level trolling because I don't know whose side he's on. So it's pretty good when it comes to the trolling. And let's look at some of the responses. If somebody says, "Go see a fucking movie," if you, who wants to watch fake fighting? That's what I want to like. It's for no reason. Fake fighting for no reason. What's the benefit to you to see fake fighting for no reason? You know, look, I don't know. I don't understand why people think it's an either or situation. You know, the vast majority of people are not interested in pro wrestling just for the sake of pro wrestling. It's all, everything is better when you are familiar with the person. The movie is better, the TV show is better, everything is better if you're familiar with the characters and you're familiar with why they're fighting. It's pretty goddamn stupid to think otherwise. Here's another one. After 20 to 30 years of WWE conditioning the wrestling fans to hate the wrestling part of the wrestling show, it's trolling for starters. But I think he's responding most to the troll than to Dave LaGreca. It does not seem like he's at all responding to Dave LaGreca. But wrestling fans don't hate the wrestling match. What they don't care about is people that they don't care about. It's literally that simple. It doesn't matter how technically proficient a guy is. If I have no emotions about him being in the ring, then I don't care. Case in point, the tag team championship match at the Royal Rumble. 4 pretty good, technically proficient professional wrestlers, and you could hear a squirrel play the violin in that building. Nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared at all, period, about that match or about either team, because people like personalities. It's not that they hate wrestling, it's that they like personalities and storylines and stuff like that more. You can be a good wrestler, you can get over as a good wrestler. People will eventually respect your work. But ultimately, people want to see larger than life characters and they want to be involved with storylines. They want to be able to follow the soap opera. how people keep missing that part is beyond me. Something called the Four Corners Podcast. He says, I'm going to just post this here. I didn't write this. It's from a locked account, so don't bring heat to them, but this is how I feel too. This isn't even touching how WWE is a sex trafficking company. It just has otherwise done irreparable damage to wrestling itself. And what they're quoting is WWE has to die for this industry to fully change and get better. I'm done beating around the bush. You know it too. We all think it. But that's the elephant in the room. We need to finally accept drones don't know better, so disregard them. So we should kill the wrestling industry because we don't like WWE. Okay, great. Every wrestling company that you guys like has gone out of business. every, except New Japan, which has been sold multiple times. You know, like how many times have various, other shell companies or whatever had to swoop in to save Noah or All Japan, New Japan, etc., as they were on the verge of bankruptcy. Every wrestling company in the United States that these guys have loved, Workrate companies, have gone out of business for one reason or another. The one company that continues to exist is the one company that actually sells characters and personality and sells an experience and all this stuff. That's the WWE. I don't. WWE has to die for the industry to get better. No. If the WWE goes away, you think people are just going to start watching New Japan? No. Do you see what happens when Walmart dies in an area? Pretty much, for starters, Walmart being there sometimes kills all the surrounding business. But those businesses don't come back when Walmart leaves. All right, it's just a gaping hole where Walmart used to be. It was the same thing that happened when Kmart left, right? So the idea that if WWE died tomorrow, all of those fans will then find something else to watch. It's like, no, they won't. They will just not watch wrestling at all. And then that's hundreds of billions of dollars gone out of the industry. Hundreds of billions of dollars gone out of the industry. That money is not magically going to go to AEW. That money is not magically going to go to New Japan or to any other wrestling promotion. If WWE was to go out of business tomorrow, the wrestling industry is going to go under. Because then there's going to be a ton of people who no longer want to be wrestlers because they're not going to get paid for it. There's nothing quite like WrestleMania. Even people who swear up and down, oh, I never watched WWE. You know, the Eddie Kingstons. I grew up watching Pro Wrestling Noah in my apartment in New York. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Get real. We all know. Everybody turned to WWF. You saw that stuff first. And maybe you gravitated to something else as you got older. But if you think that the company dying is going to all of a sudden free up all these great pro wrestling fans, it's like, no, that's not what happens. Look at what happens when the big major promotions, the monopolies in a lot of these territories died. Few of them even got small indies to keep alive, but nobody replaced them. Nothing replaced Mid-South Wrestling when it went under. Nothing replaced Jim Crockett Promotions when it went under. Nothing replaced Georgia Championship Wrestling when it went under. Nothing replaced those things. They just sit back and now they wait for WWE shows. And now occasionally you'll see an indie show pop up here and there, but those indie shows are very rare. They're not even regular. Most promoters cannot afford to run a show every week. TNA can't even afford to run shows live every week. This is, nothing replaced the AWA, which was huge, and not only the Twin Cities, but also in Chicago. Nothing replaced them. You just have dead territories floating around. Nothing replaced them. Nothing. This is kind of ridiculous, man. But this is what the smarks are. This is what they're all about. They want everybody to die, everything to die. Here's another one. If you like the non-wrestling parts of wrestling more than the actual wrestling, I can't take your opinion seriously. Go watch a movie or something. It's like telling people to go watch boxing. Go watch MMA if you want to see people fight. Because actually, if you go watch MMA, those fights are real, allegedly. You go watch boxing, those fights are real, allegedly. You know, that doesn't make sense. If you want to watch sports, go watch sports. Pro wrestling is not a sport. It's theater. So, and even back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, there were storylines, man. Like nothing that they're saying rings true in terms of human universals. I've told you guys before, and it stands to reason. There have been top superstars all over the globe where they were not as technically proficient or as technically a good wrestler as somebody else, but ended up being a top draw. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Do you put butts in seats? Do people want to buy programs with your face on it? Do they want to buy merchandise, T-shirts, or whatever? You know, or back in the days of like Gene Stanley. I forgot it was somebody else too, where they had fan clubs and they were selling subscriptions to fan clubs and that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that matters. Not how well you can do a wrist lock. And nobody gives a shit, ultimately. I don't know. It would be great if we could have both. But that's not how it works all the time. Quite often, the thing that attracts the masses is not the most technically proficient. Here's another one that says, fuck it. WWE should just remove the wrestling ring at this point. The WWE shields don't care about the art form of the in-ring work. You can have the best story every way, and the payoff be complete garbage with a shitty match. It all matters. Well, that last sentence or that last statement is true. It all matters. Nobody wants to watch a bad pro wrestling match, but I can tell you this, if people are excited, they don't care. WrestleMania 3, Hogan versus Andre, technically one of the worst matches I've ever seen. But it drew 80,000 people. And people, guess what? People knew Andre was virtually immobile when they went and bought a ticket for that show. It wasn't like Andre's injuries and immobility was a secret. No, people have been watching him for years. He had started slowing down. He couldn't move as much. And Hogan, oh my God, everybody knew what Hogan could do. He was on national fucking television. And 80,000 people still went to go see an over-the-hill Andre the Giant and a technically limited Hulk Hogan have a match because guess what? They were involved in the story. That's what mattered. And then guess what? They had a terrible match at WrestleMania, technically terrible match at WrestleMania. They doubled down, had the rematch a couple of weeks later on national television, and even more people watched it. How do you how many times do you have to be told this? The beatings will continue until morale improves. But I will say this. WWE at one point did remove the ring. Earlier, I think in this very day, I was strolling through Twitter and somebody had reminded me of the 2020 Money in the Bank ladder match, where basically they were running around through Titan Tower. Like, that match was super fun. I didn't even remember that until somebody told me about it. But there was no ring. The ring didn't actually come into play until they got to the top of the tower, right? But it was an incredibly fun match with a lot of different gags and jokes and stuff. It was completely silly because of, COVID stuff. But why can't you have wacky shit sometimes? Not everything needs to be what is these? And then to be quite honest, a lot of the stuff that they think is really great in ring work is not really even all that great. But I could talk about that some other time. But I liked the 2020 Money in the Bank ladder match. That shit was fucking fun. My only problem with that match, the both matches were running simultaneously. I wish they had filmed them separately. Here's another one. I cannot identify with this mindset. I enjoy wrestling for the physical performance and crowd psychology, not for the melodrama. Then what is the crowd psychology? Pro wrestling is melodrama. What do you think selling is? What do you think babyfaces firing up is? What do you think that? What do you think that is? Because you don't see that shit in sports anywhere. It's extremely rare that you'll find somebody, basically hulk up during a UFC fight or a boxing fight or a football game or something like that. These people are ridiculous. They're ridiculous. Vince McMahon spent 20 years making wrestling fans hate wrestling. No, he spent 20 years teaching people that the important thing about what they do is the personalities, not about whether wrestling is real or not, but about whether you actually cheer the heroes, boo the villains. You want to see the villains get their asses kicked. You want to see the hero win the championship, all that sort of stuff. Not about the technical proficiency of Jake the Snake Roberts versus the technical acumen of Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Nobody ever gave a fuck about that. Superfly Jimmy Snuka sold a whole bunch of tickets. Was not fucking Kurt Angle in the ring. He was never Chris Benoit. All right. Bob Backlund was more technically proficient than Jimmy Snuka, but who was the bigger draw? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what matters. That's what matters. Yeah, that's the only problem I had with it. They shouldn't have put those matches together. They should have separated them. But it was a crazy match. I forgot how crazy it was because I don't really revisit a lot of the COVID stuff. But that was so over the top that it was delightful. I watched it at work. It was delightful. I legitimately got a good laugh out of it. It was super over the top. Dave is a fucking mark. He basically said, fuck wrestling, just give me long entrances as soap opera moments. Unbelievable. Fuck busted open. That's not what Dave LeGreca said, actually. What he said was he cares more about having a connection with a guy like Jey Uso than about watching Will Ospreay do flips. Wow. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people who would agree with you. But there will be millions that agree with him. Like there's millions that agree with him already. This is why when New Japan comes to the United States and running in basketball, like what is these small venues, these little high school gyms? But WWE can run a regular arena in Japan. There's something about the product that's easy for people to digest. And I get it. Sometimes, and everybody has these sort of things. But there's rap, and then there's, jazz or funk or whatever. And there's always these popular acts that other people who are more interested in the genre say, oh, he don't really typify the genre. He ain't really all that good. Jay-Z is one of the many ones, Lil Wayne and all them. They ain't real rappers. Lord such and such from, Buttfuck Alabama is a better rapper than him. It's like, but nobody wants to listen to that fucking guy. There's a reason the guy got 42 albums out and nobody heard him. I used to go through that stuff a lot. And I used to be that guy. So I already know how that works out. I used to be that guy that used to run around talking about how all the mainstream rappers are terrible. Like I spent countless hours arguing against like Young Jeezy and all that stuff. And now I sit back and look at it at 40 and I'm like, man, at the end of the day, nobody gave a fuck. They were caught up in the vibe. They were caught up in the wave. And Jeezy was good enough that, you know, people was willing to rock with him. It was a perfect mesh of charisma and personality and songwriting and beats and all that kind of stuff. Was he the best rapper? No. But you're not listening to Young Jeezy a cappella, you know? And why would you? And then I realized, you know, I had to grow up, I had to mature a little bit. You realize that, you know, all music has, you know, well, not all of it, quite a bit of music has a purpose, time and place for everything. Young Jeezy is not a rapper I want to listen to a cappella. But who the fuck do I want to listen to a cappella? Pretty much nobody. You know? And then you had to realize, like, hey, there's other things that people are taking into account. There's a hierarchy of values. Technically, proficiency at rapping was low on the value of other people. It was a little bit higher on my value. But I came to, and I'm still not a huge Jeezy fan, I came to appreciate a lot of Jeezy's material when I got older. You know? Because it became the sound of a certain time. And I think that probably helps matters. You know? Is when I hear, you know, certain songs from Young Jeezy, I remember where I was. You know, what I was doing. You know, I remember how I felt about the song when it first came out. But I actually enjoy it more now. You know, but it's the same thing with wrestling. It's the same thing with wrestling. Some people didn't really appreciate, you know, the new generation era or something like that when they were watching it, but now they go back and they look at it and they're like, oh man, that was fun. I loved it when I was watching it. I accept the cringe of it too. You know, but nobody ever cared about technical proficiency. It's just not relevant. Malachi Williams says, Rey Mysterio is my favorite wrestler of all time. Not because of his high flying. When I was a kid, I saw the mask, the entrance with him jumping on the stage, and the theme, it got me invested in him. See, that really helps, because when I was watching him in WCW, one of the things that always, I don't want to use the word attracted because that's like a big pause moment. One of the things that drew me to Rey Mysterio was his size. He was so tiny. And it's like he is tiny in a division of men who are tiny. You know, like Dean Malenko is a very small man. And here's Ray, who's even smaller than him. But Ray seemingly had guts. He never gave up. His offense was unique. It was flashy. You know, and he seemingly lost matches in a logical way. And he seemingly won matches in ways that were almost superhuman. It made him interesting. No, he couldn't talk for shit, but we didn't know that at the time. But he became one of my favorite WCW wrestlers. You know? And the mask helped him stand out, even though it was a bunch of guys wearing masks. Ike Dadon says, I like your video on Eddie Guerrero being a B-plus player because it's facts. Yeah, I got a lot of hate for that. You know, but I don't think there's anything wrong with being a B-plus player. Most wrestlers suck, if we're being honest. Eddie Guerrero was a very high wrestler, very highly valued professional wrestler. He was very good. Great at everything. Much better than people that you see walking around today. How many 5-star matches did Eddie Guerrero have? Compared to Will Ospreay. Do you mean to tell me that Will Ospreay is a better wrestler than Eddie Guerrero? Because that's what caring about the greatness of the in-ring work. For starters, you can't tell me that Will Ospreay is a better in-ring worker than Eddie Guerrero, because he's not. And yet, he probably has 6 times as many 5-star matches as Eddie Guerrero. Huh. Let's move on. Let's move it on. It's so funny that people like this always refer to themselves as casuals when they dedicate their entire life and persona to glazing WWE. You aren't a casual. You're a fucking moron. Well, no, that's the very definition of a casual. Because he only likes WWE. Well, he likes other wrestling too. But he doesn't follow like the indies. I look at it. If you're a casual, if you'll watch it when it's on, but you're not going to actively search it out. You know, like a lot of people they'll watch a clip here and there. If Raw is on, they'll watch it. If it's not on, they're not really missing it. That's what it means to be casual. I mean, you might have to be reminded of what's going on. You may not have, you need to be reminded of storylines or reminded of what a character is or who he is or whatever. You're not a hardcore. The hardcores follow everything. They're the tape traders, the guys who are digging into the crates of YouTube, pulling out, penny banner matches from 1956 or some shit. Most people are not doing that stuff. Most people are not going digging in the crates like that. The vast majority of people ain't doing that. Slim Shady, B Rabbit, Eminem, best of all time, yo. Good luck with that. Ike the Don says it's like the Game versus 50 Cent argument. Game is a better lyricist, but he's never going to be a better rapper artist than 50. You need to stop saying him and 50 are equals. Yeah, see, now this is a perfect example because I've always been in awe of the Game as a rapper. He's incredibly good. When he did things like 300 bars, I was like, man, how can anybody like 50 Cent more than the Game? I still like 50 Cent more. I mean, I still like the Game more than 50 Cent because I don't like a lot of the singles that 50 made. I was not a big fan of, like 21 Questions. Wasn't a big fan of that. I want to see the reason you smile. I wasn't a big fan of that. But then he would make something like Popping Them Things. And I'd be like, oh, that's the kind of shit I want to hear from 50 Cent. Many Men. That's the kind of shit I want to hear from 50 Cent. And then I can also say, Game has never put together an album better than Get Rich or Die Trying. But he's a better MC. If you put a microphone in front of both of them and told them just rap, Game would probably smoke 50 Cent in terms of actual rapping. But if you gave them a year to write a song, to write an album, 50 Cent's album will probably be better. He's a better artist because he understands songwriting. He understands, meeting the beat, what the target audience for a song is, how the industry works, what kind of stuff the radio would play, all that kind of stuff is taken into account. He's a more complete artist. So it doesn't matter that he's not a better rapper, but that's a really good example. Because I remember being in the middle of that. Like, this nigga's dropping 500 bars on the song. Like, 50 can't do that. And then I realized, like, 50 don't have to. That's why he don't do that. He could drop a 16, make fun of Game, and everybody will laugh. And then he'll go and make a hit record, get a platinum album, and Game will still be doing mixtapes, talking shit. And I do like some Game, I like a lot of Game songs, a lot of them. And I don't think he's whack by any stretch of the imagination in terms of being an artist. But you can't put him on the same plateau as 50 Cent in terms of songwriting, especially since 50 Cent wrote a lot of the songs that Game ended up. Poor Game. Anyway, let's go back to this thing, back to the responses to Dave LaGreca. Says, I don't care what casuals care about, but the fact that Ospreay Ibushi clips goes viral like every few months suggests that people do indeed enjoy some flippy flop. If you want to skip wrestling, just watch literally any other show. The acting will probably be better. Well, guess what? If I want to see gymnastics, I could just watch Olympic gymnastics. And guess what? That will be better. And then you say the same thing, like Ospreay and Ibushi, their clips go viral every few months. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the Stone Cold Steve Austin and Booker T in the grocery store clip. I don't know how many times I've seen Stone Cold Steve Austin cover Vince in beer. And it's like random accounts on Twitter finding this stuff. Even things that they said were terrible, like Roman Reigns being covered in dog food. I see those clips pretty much once a week from wrestling accounts. I see Diva stands, and there's a lot of them, more than, and it's growing. It's an army. It's an army of Diva stands. They make their shit go viral all the time. random matches from like 2010 are like all over my timeline. It's like Eva Marie or like not maybe not Eva Marie, but like Layla and Eve Torres. That's what I was thinking of. And you're like, what the hell? But they enjoy it. They like the Diva matches. They don't care that the Diva matches are 2 minutes. They like the Diva matches. They like the Diva segments. You can't tell people what to like. It's dumb. X9 says anything that has Sunny is a plus in my book. So Prism got Sunny. I shouldn't have said that. Here's another one. Sheamus literally has a tweet telling people that they are idiots for believing this, by the way. Matches are literally the difference between pro wrestling being pro wrestling and being shitty live theater. Well, then what happens when... Oh, my God. That's because Sheamus is a work rate guy. That's why. He was given all the time in the world to do good segments and do entertaining stuff, and very little of it has transitioned to things that people care about over time, which is why Sheamus can be in WWE for 15 years and people struggle to remember things that he did. Right? Like I like Sheamus, but this is a fact. What Sheamus segments is going to go viral that people love? And then when it comes to matches, it's only been like the last 2 or 3 years that people actually cared about his matches. And he's been having good matches the entire time he's been in WWE. He had good matches with Big Show, believe it or not. He had good matches with Alberto Del Rio, believe it or not. Nobody gave a fuck at the time, though. So, get real. Let's see. This type of fan is the funniest. If you take the wrestling out of wrestling and claim it's better, that just shows what uncultured swine you are. If you think the best part is the D-list mouth breathers who can never make it in Hollywood speaking, get help. I don't understand. See how these people are. They're kind of self-deprecating, right? Because the people that you like are also very bad at talking. And in fact, they're in some ways they're a lot worse. So you actually don't want them to talk. What you want them to do is go in there and do fake matches, right? Shut up and go do your fake match, because that's what you're good at. That's all I want to see from you is your fake match. And then they go out there and they have some fake gymnastics match that you then pretend and act like it's great when nobody cares about it. It basically happened in a closet, or it happened in Japan, And maybe the Japanese cared, but they didn't care enough because then the company starts going out of business 2-3 years later. How many 5-star matches has happened to a company that had to be bailed out numerous times? I think they said 99 not 5-star matches with New Japan. How many times have it had to be bailed out before it went under? And it's going under right now. I mean, it is what it is, man. You just can't tell people anything. You can't teach them nothing. They don't get it. Ike Tadana says Rey Mysterio is the Allen Iverson of wrestling. Small, but could go toe-to-toe with the top guys. Absolutely. And you know what? That's a pretty good parallel you got there, because like Allen Iverson, Rey Mysterio was like, he changed the game when it came to small guys. Like, people didn't think they could get smaller than Rey, and they still haven't gotten smaller than Rey. But Rey Mysterio's success, it's tied to, Shawn Michaels' success and Brett. I mean, not even really Brett, because Brett is bigger than Shawn. But Shawn's success has opened the door for so many guys. But Rey kicked the door in. Jeff Hardy kicked the door in. And even Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Jericho, and so many guys. But Rey Mysterio was something special. He was something different. Because WWE had not had successfully a masked wrestler of his size. Like, they had silly shit like Quang and Max Moon and all that. None of that stuff don't work. The Portuguese Man of War, all that. And you got this this situation here with Rey Mysterio, where he brought a whole new flavor. And again, he's not the first luchador that has worked in WWE. He's not even the first masked wrestler. You know, Mil Mascaras had wrestled in WWF in the 70s. Andre the Giant wrestled in a mask. There's been all kinds of masked wrestlers in WWE. But there was something about Ray that made him stand out. WG Field says people say Jey Uso can only say yeet without acknowledging the which one are you and you're out, I'm out too. Some of the best promos of the 2020s. Yeah, I mean, his character growth has been tremendous. You know? And here's the weird thing. We go back to technical proficiency. Like these guys talking about how their acting sucks. Guess what? It ain't supposed to be polished acting. It's not supposed to be a polished television show. That's not what it's meant to be. And then, hey, if you go in, Hollywood is a really good example too. How much money did Arnold Schwarzenegger make while people say that he was a terrible actor? He's a shitty actor. He makes shitty movies. Every motherfucker in the world wouldn't watch Predator. Everybody with two eyes wouldn't watch Terminator. And we'll go watch it with a 70-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger. But go watch a movie. It has better acting. 90% of the actors you like suck. It's hilarious, man. This is ridiculous. These people are stupid. Here's another one. Just because people have a microphone and a heart full of spite doesn't mean they know anything. That's pretty good. Are they admitting Jey Uso is a shitter? I think most people already accept that Jey Uso is not that great in the ring. They're not lying to themselves about how Jey Uso is. At least the people I've seen, they're not lying to themselves about it. They're just saying the truth, which is it doesn't matter. They're going for the ride at this point. If Jey Uso beat Gunther in 2 minutes and then spent the next 25 yeeting and dancing around, they'd be fine. That's how over Jey Uso is. And the only people will be complaining is people online. Here's another one. Casuals don't care about flippy flop. Oh, so now he's talking to the troll. He said that's why lucha clips or Osprey flip reversal go viral every now and then. Or why Rey Mysterio is one of the most popular guys in the Fed for years. Yeah, but you are ignoring the fact that a lot of the guys who never flip-flopped are the most viral. You say, oh, they go viral every few years. Yeah, they go viral because somebody's seen it. And they're like, oh, man, isn't this cool? Kind of like, a car crash will go viral every once in a while. Or like that video of a guy getting cheated on this Spanish television show that's broke the internet. Like, yeah, every once in a while, something like that will go viral. But who the fuck really watching that show? I may watch this clip, but I ain't watching the show. I don't care about the show. But I'm just interested in this clip because everybody else is interested in it. But then as soon as I turn the clip off, I have no interest to see the rest. Now, some people, they'll see that and they're like, okay, I want to see more. But not me. Let's see. It's so ironic how guys like Dave LaGreca will literally shed tears when talking about the sacrifices pro wrestlers make by putting their bodies on the line every single day. And then they say the actual wrestling doesn't mean anything. How insulting. He didn't say that. He did not say that the actual wrestling doesn't mean anything. He said it's less important. What's more important is how the fans connect with the talent. That's more important. That is a fact. It is factual information that the fans connect more with the talent is better than the match. Because fan connection will make the match good or bad, depending on how much work that the wrestler puts in. Period. If you love the guy and he's getting his ass kicked, then, Do we have to play the Jim Cornette thing about how he explains pro wrestling? If you saw two guys fighting on the side of the road, you'll stop and watch it. But then imagine that you know one of those guys. You know, like that breakdown is how pro wrestling works. It's two guys in the ring doing stuff. But now imagine you like one of those guys. Guess what? The part where you like him is the part that Dave LeGreca is talking about. It's not, oh, there's two guys fighting. Oh, that's interesting. And then you turn and walk away. It's like, my friend is fighting. You know? Jey Uso is like a family member to some of these people now. They related to the character. They related to the character's growth. And they didn't give a fuck about his acting. They were looking at the situations that he was in. The struggles, the trials and tribulations that he had to go through. And he's just one example. This is how pro wrestling works. The fact that these people who swear that they're the best pro wrestling fans don't get how pro wrestling works. Pro wrestling does not work by you telling people, here's a great match between two great guys. And then you watch the fucking match, you can't tell the babyface from the heel. They both work the same way. They're doing the same stuff to each other. There's no struggle. If I'm going to watch some pro wrestling just for the sake of, there better be some fucking struggle in there. And not some gymnastics cooperation routine where one guy jumps into the other guy's arms or he misses a kick by a mile because I'm not supposed to touch him. I'm going to clothesline, throw a clothesline, but it's not like it's going to hit anybody. And these are supposed to be great matches where guys don't sell. Guys stand still waiting for somebody else. They're literally looking at the guy when he's about to hit him with the chair. This is terrible. These people are stupid. Somebody says the Jey Uso promo is what we love about wrestling. He says actual moments like these are why we love pro wrestling. And then it's Kenny Omega and Gabe Kidd, some bunch of fucking Japanese girls, Danielson beating Swerve, and Hangman winning the world title. Well, here's the thing. I don't know anything about the Japanese girls. But why do you think that all those other segments worked? Is it because Kenny Omega came back from an injury and you like him? Is it because Bryan Danielson is nearing the end of his career and you actually like him and he put his career on the line? Is it because you watched Hangman Page and watched his entire storyline to lead to this point? Is that why you would like pro wrestling? Because this was not because they had a great match. This was because you were interested in this match because you cared about the people in the match. Gabe Kidd versus Kenny Omega means nothing to somebody who's not a fan of Gabe Kidd or Kenny Omega. It means nothing to somebody who doesn't even know these people. AJ3 says, in WWE, it was the land of the giants. In WCW, it was where the big boys play. For AEW, it's where the best wrestle. Who have to be small guys. Well, in AEW, if you're a big guy, if you're over 6'2", prepare to eat pins. Unless your name is Bobby Lashley, then you can avoid it. Everybody else, prepare to eat a pin. X9 says, no one ain't watching PWG. Let us be real. Well, you think from the way Meltzer has heaped praise on PWG that it would be like a top wrestling company in the world. It's not. It's not. It's a very, very popular, extremely niche product that has never left, I think, Southern California or the Northern California, one or the other. But it's not like PWG shows in like Chicago or New York are banging, rocking, and got their own little weekend or whatever. At least GCW's got that going for it. Let's get back to this thing. Here's another one. Do they ever get tired of saying this anti-good wrestling bullshit? Holy shit, is LeGreca the lowest of the anti-AEW grifter class? Also, just watch a movie, dude, if you don't want wrestling matches. These people are ridiculous. I'm trying to skip the ones that are kind of repetitive. Here's another one. It's not the reason we love pro wrestling. It's one of the reasons we love pro wrestling. It's promos, wrestling, storylines, characters, moments. It's a combination of various things that make pro wrestling one of the greatest and most unique sports in the world. This guy's talking too much sense. I have no room for people who I actually agree with. I'm going to give him a heart. But he's right. Here's another one. Wrestling doesn't work without wrestling. I don't care how many segments you do. If the match is ass, it's not going to work. But it does work. And it has worked. Because ultimately, nobody has ever been turned off because the match is not going to be good. Except people on the internet. Nobody has ever been turned off by that. I've never heard anybody say, I'm not going to watch that match. I love the story, but I'm not going to watch that match because the match is not going to be any good. If anything, if the match is great, people forget about how the story is. Like most people like Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks at WrestleMania, right? People completely forget that the story was terrible. The build up to that match was awful. When they actually got in the ring, though, nobody cared about the build up. You know? So this is actually a point in the side of great wrestling matches can overshadow a terrible story. Everybody talks a lot about the Triple H Randy Orton match. Great story, really bad match. But guess what? Oh well, maybe next time. That doesn't mean you don't have the match, because you can't guarantee that the match is going to be any good anyway. You can't guarantee that people are going to care. You can only put your best foot forward and hope that people will care. I think a part of the reason why nobody cared about that match is because Randy lost. I maintained that if Randy would have won that match, you probably remember that match a lot better. Here's another one. Old man yelling at clouds. Take your 5-star match and shove it up your ass. Acting as if Jey Uso screaming yeet is cinema. Cutting a good promo means absolutely nothing if you can't back it up in the ring. It means everything. It means everything, literally. Talking people into the building is the single most important skill a professional wrestler can have. Because your job, literally, is to sell tickets. That's literally the only job you got. Nobody gives a fuck whether you take bumps or not. It's literally your job to sell tickets. Superstar Billy Graham sold tickets. Nobody cared that he wasn't the best wrestler in the world. The only people who cared about that were idiots reading magazines. The people who were packing Madison Square Garden didn't give a fuck. The people watching him on TV didn't care. Ike the Don says, somebody said it'd be funny if you look at Sheamus' career backwards. Yeah, I mean, the first 10 years of Sheamus' career, nobody gave a fuck, and he won world titles and was like main eventing and stuff. And nobody gave a damn about anything. And the matches weren't even bad. Nobody cared about them. And then now, he's having mid-card matches for the last few years, but he's been having bangers, and the respect level has gone up. And now people are like, wait a minute, Sheamus has been around for 15 years? Like, yeah, he's been around forever. Malachi Williams says, it's crazy how Sheamus basically got the Lesnar push his first year, and no one remembers, nor has he benefited now from it, and he's mid-card for life. That's absolutely true. He won the title 8 months into his run. 8 months. That is almost literally the Lesnar push. And nobody remembers that. Nobody remembers his title run. Nobody remembers who he's feuding with at the time. It was probably still John Cena. I think the Nexus thing happened around that time, didn't it? No, that was 2008 when Sheamus won the belt. Nobody remembers the most recent time he won the belt either. Was 2016. He beat Roman Reigns for it. He lost the belt like a week or two later. And that's what happened with the League of League of Nations thing. People remember that. They don't remember that, right? Sheamus was the champion, though. He cashed in his money in the bank to take the belt from Roman and made Roman cry in the middle of the ring. That was a great moment, by the way. I'm surprised they didn't bring that up. I'm Sheamus. I made Roman Reigns cry. That would be great. That would be great. Ike the Don says Jeff Hardy saying he could have been the top guy over John Cena is the truth and false because he was more popular than John Cena in 2008, 2009, but he never had Cena's mic skills or body. And he didn't need to. He didn't need to. He had charisma. People just like Jeff Hardy. You know? That's what that is. People just like him. For the girls, he was hot and he was handsome. He was the weird alternative guy. For, the guys of that generation, he was a daredevil, the X Games guy, kind of guy you want to hang out with. That's how he got over with people. He didn't really have to talk, but he could still sell tickets just because he was Jeff Hardy. Just being himself. Somebody says this is so stupid because if you remove in-ring action, then wrestling is an awfully produced, acted, and scripted soap opera. The reason why Terry Funk was such a compelling character was because how good he was at transferring his outside the ring antics to the ring. Yes, but most of the people that you like can't do that. They can't do that. And don't get it twisted. He did a lot of outside the ring antics too. And then he, when that stuff didn't work, he blew his ears off or blew himself up. So then there's that. When worse comes to worse, just blow yourself up. He's literally admitting his brain is conditioned for the bubble. This isn't just cooking. This isn't cooking just AEW, but wrestling in general. Spitting at legends of this sport like the San Martinos, Ricky Dozan, El Santo, all the pioneers that made wrestling great outside of WWE. San Martinos? You mean like Bruno San Martino? The guy that people said was a terrible wrestler? And that he shouldn't be a top guy in the WWF? And that Buddy Rogers shouldn't lose the belt to him because he wasn't any good? Huh? I can't speak on El Santo and Ricky Dozan because I haven't seen them. But I can tell you this. Wrestling is subjective. There's always going to be people who don't like somebody or prefer somebody else to something else. But ultimately, how you sell, and El Santo is one of the biggest stars in the history of the business. And a lot of that has to do with, how he's been marketed and promoted. Literally, his image, him doing movies and being in comic books and stuff like that. A bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with actual wrestling. Just saying. And also, Ricky Dozan he basically introduced pro wrestling to Japan. Completely different ball game, my guy. Another one says, wish Dave LeGreca would stand up, pace around, and yell into his microphone about the Janelle Grant lawsuit taking place or the Rainbow lawsuit and educating his listening base of the actual atrocities going on in the wrestling business. But here we are. The actual atrocities going on, as in current, because the Rainbow scandal is from some shit from 40 years ago. Literally, some of those people are dead. But this is that virtue signaling. This guy doesn't really give a fuck about Janelle Grant or the Rainbow scandal. It's all about trying to use this as a weapon against people he don't like, which is kind of the worst kind of agitprop, I'm going to use people's pain to attack you. Look, man, if you care about that shit, then you should go and read those documents again and again and again and again, become very familiar with them, and then let other people do what they want to do. Nobody wants to sit there and wallow in this shit forever. And then if you also want to look at, atrocities, why don't you go and and read about some real issues. Go read a book about the Holocaust if you want to talk about fucking atrocities. Go learn about Khmer Rouge. Go learn about even a kind of a modern day atrocity that was maybe not on the same level as the Holocaust. Go learn about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Go learn about Waco or Ruby Ridge or something. You care so much about atrocities. Why are you on the internet talking about pro wrestling at all? There's so many atrocities you can go learn about and pretend to give a fuck about. Why start with the Ring Boy scandal? Why not pedophile teachers in public schools? This one was pretty funny. First dude to get CTE from watching wrestling. I think I got it before he did. I got CTE from watching wrestling like 2000. X9 says, why would you be proud with Ibushi going viral, yet people like Mariah May and Tony Storm are around? Bunch of chads. Yeah, I've seen more of Tony Storm's ass the last couple of hours than I saw anything else on Dynamite. A guy took a powerbomb on a barricade, and I've seen more video of Tony Storm in them tights. That should tell you what's going on here. But gooners are like gooning more important than powerbombs on barricades. I can tell you that. Degenerate Sharingan says, I don't know. It seemed that was kind of bigger, especially in '94. But at least I would say Sean was taller than Brett. Yeah, I think Sean was probably slightly taller than Brett. They seemed to be about the same height, but Brett was like wider. Certainly more muscular than Sean. Because in the early '90s, Sean was kind of very skinny, and then I think he got big. Then he slimmed down again, and he looked very slender. But he wasn't painfully skinny. He wasn't the 1-2-3 kid, that's for sure. Crossface Ray says, I only asked that because Bliss and Trish were the only ones to get a Rumble to get a reaction. Oh, you asked if the women's division need an overhaul. I think a lot of that had to do with the lack of storylines for the women. When you don't have storylines, which is what we're talking about now, you don't have storylines, you don't have characters, people are not over. How are people going to get over if you don't give them storylines and character work? How are they supposed to get over? Everybody who got a reaction in the Women's Royal Rumble is a character that people have seen all the time. Even Jada Parker, she went viral a couple of times on the internet, mostly because of her ass and how thick she is. But people were familiar with her because they had seen her before. People, they don't see Lyra Valkyria almost ever. So nobody gave her a fuck when she came out. You don't do anything with her. Why should anybody care? Here's another one. I wish people realize WWE crowds are different from pro wrestling crowds. WWE crowds don't care about 5-star classics. All they care about is storytelling and getting emotionally attached. Wrestling is last. If you're a fan who just wants pro wrestling, go watch AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. I agree with this. This gets a heart from me. If you want to see really bad take on sports, go watch New Japan and AEW. They do very terrible sports. It doesn't look like a sport. Not with the obvious cooperation. Imagine you watched the NFL and you saw obvious cooperation between the wide receivers and the defensive backs. Now, I know some people think the NFL is a work, and Roman Reigns said it was a work, and I believe him. But imagine if you saw obvious cooperation between these guys. They're supposed to be playing against each other. Or obvious cooperation in boxing. Then you would be like, wait a minute, what the fuck? If it's going to be fake, at least let me think it's real. That's kind of how this thing is going on right now. Yeah, my damn device about to die already. Shit. Here's another one. This guy's from. Is he Fightful for real? Let me make sure he's from Fightful for real before I say anything. Oh, he's a Fightful mod. Mm. He says, I don't like calling attention to this stuff anymore, but I just need to quickly say, don't watch wrestling if you don't want to watch wrestling. What the fuck are you watching a show with wrestling matches for if you want to watch a soap opera? Watch the soap opera that has 0 wrestling matches. It's that easy. Or watch a Marvel movie. Or watch The Sopranos. Watch fucking Blue's Clues. Watch anything that doesn't have wrestling matches. You'll find stories in all of these shows and movies. How about letting people enjoy what they want to enjoy without making the opposition out to be this big bad? Leave the normal people alone, please. You just wrote an entire paragraph talking about normal people. You're not normal. You're not normal. Fucking Fightful. You're gonna quit next. You're gonna tap out next. I'm gonna see you resign from your post show next. Gozu94 says it's crazy that people will use Lucha as an example when some of the most melodramatic storylines that I've ever seen was from AAA and CMLL pre-streaming. Yeah, I mean it's pretty funny. Like I used to watch. Like I had a friend when I was in Job Corps. He spoke Spanish, and he was one of the other few people I knew that watched wrestling. He was always watched AAA, and he would always watch it in Spanish. And he would tell me what they're talking about and what they're doing. He would be engrossed in that stuff. And he would say like the commentary is just describing the moves and everything, but the storylines and everything was just over the top and being extra dramatic. And I was like, oh wow, I feel like I'm missing something. And I can't believe that as many Hispanics as in the United States, AAA has not been able, or CMLL has not been able to penetrate this market. And it seems like CMLL is not interested. And AAA has tried multiple times and failed. They're like the New Japan of Mexico. They're going to keep trying and keep failing. But as we get more Hispanics in the United States, eventually that stuff is going to stick, I think. Here's another one from the response pool. It says, talking about flippy shit in 2025 is genuinely so outdated. Not only are you admitting to just not liking fun, but genuinely which top guy in WWE right now has a flip-based moveset? On top of that, there are still people like Ospreay and AEW who have quite a big fan base and so on. I can guarantee you can line up all the people who are fans of Will Ospreay, and it will not match the people who are fans of Jey Uso. Nobody looks at it. I'm sorry that people are not going to look at his cage match rating before they start jumping up, yelling, "It's me, ooh, steady one ish," and waving their arms. You're not going to say, but he only got 3.25 stars. No, they don't care, man. They don't care. And you're not going to get them to care. These people do not give a shit. What is this about Roman Reigns? All right. Oh shit, what am I looking at? Ike Don says John Cena was never the best in-ring worker, but he had that connection. That's how I look at Jey Uso now. I remember being on the internet when John Cena first rose up, and that's all I heard was how terrible John Cena is. He's such a terrible wrestler. They're going to force Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle to wrestle this guy. He's so bad. He's so terrible. He's the shits. He's blah, 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 blah. Years and years and years and years and years of that stuff. Meanwhile, they propping up Samoa Joe. Meanwhile, they propping up AJ Styles. They're propping up, all the Ring of Honor guys, Chris Daniels and all those dudes. And John Cena is cruising to a Hall of Fame career. And now all of these guys are in there. John Cena and Samoa Joe are probably peers, right? You would say they're in the same age bracket. Cena's about to retire, and Samoa Joe's gonna keep wrestling. I mean, Samoa Joe's doing great. He's doing the Twist Metal TV show. Had a pretty good run in WWE. He's in a good spot. Well, now he's not in a good spot in AEW. But I guarantee you Samoa Joe would rather have John Cena's career. You know? Have John Cena's lifestyle and career rather than all those great matches that he had. Because the money matters. You know, not even the fame. Just the money and the opportunities and making all the injuries and stuff worth it. Is it really worth it if you go out there and break your neck and you never got over? Is that really what you want? You want to go out there and tear up your back and break your wrist and not even be over? And nobody cares when you come back? I just don't get it. I don't get it. Here's another one from the pool. It's hard being a fan of different kinds of mediums and seeing people say stupid shit like this. You want to watch TV, just put on Breaking Bad at this point, instead of insulting the work of the athletes. You're insulting the work of the athletes. Jey Uso is standing in the ring, trading and building on the connection he has with the audience. That connection was built over 15 years. That's all he's saying is that's more important. How many more of this should I read? Because I know a lot of them are saying the same thing over and over again. Crossface Ray says these snarky fans act like they know everything, but they know nothing. Gozu94 says, as well as some of the most famous acts of lucha weren't known for being workhorses. Huh. The Generation Sharingan says, can someone explain to me what was the whole program between Kenny Omega and that Gabe Kidd guy being serious here? What happened was Gabe Kidd was taking shots at AEW and he was being very disrespectful. And he was talking trash about how New Japan, the booking of certain guys and guys leaving New Japan. Basically, he was being a New Japan homer. And he took some shots at Kenny Omega, so Kenny Omega responded. And then he was looking for an opponent, and Gabe Kidd, I think, volunteered to face him. And then we just built from there. So it was basically like Gabe Kidd was representing New Japan versus evil AEW, even though it made no sense because Kenny Omega was making a big babyface return from having, 2 miles of his intestines removed or whatever. He should not have been put in a heel. That's how you know that these people are not thinking. You book a guy as a heel after he's coming back from a life-threatening injury. You book him as a heel. What are you, stupid? It's just setting money on fire at this point. But that's what happens when you don't care about baby faces and heels, because all you care about is good matches. Stupid. Gozu94 says PWG be late with their DVD releases, so it's not like people can even catch up with that product. I never heard about PWG having any kind of storylines anyway, outside of white people calling the black man nigger in the storyline. I don't know. Other than that, I don't know. I haven't watched enough PWG to really care. I'm not really into the indies. I'm more into the old stuff. I'll go watch a match from like the 70s. I think I watched a little bit of the Vashons versus Bruiser and the Crusher earlier. I'd rather watch that than watch Roderick Strong wrestle some guy for 45 minutes in a sweaty gym in the middle of nowhere. I don't care about that. I'm not watching that. I'm not gonna hold you up. I'm not even about to try to watch that. But I'll go and watch. I'll go watch Sherry Martel wrestle Medusa in the AWA show in like the late 80s or something. I'll watch that on YouTube. Yeah, I'll go watch that. No problem. You tell me, oh yeah, fucking Speedball Mike Bailey is about to wrestle Takeshita in buttfuck Arkansas in front of 300 people. Like, yeah, good luck. I don't really care. It has to have some kind of cachet to it for me to give a damn. Otherwise, I may put it on while I'm cooking dinner, because sometimes I do that. I'll throw a show on as I'm cooking dinner, or I'll throw a show on while I'm reading. And I do that a lot, especially when I'm reading comic books and stuff like that, just so there's activity around. And I'm not really sitting down watching the entire show. So if you ever hear me mention like a GCW show or a Deadlock Pro show, that's probably what I did. Is I probably went and found a stream, put it on, and then started reading the book. I probably couldn't tell you like exactly what's happening or everything like that, because my days of following all this shit is over. I'm too old for that. I can't take any more wrestling. It's more wrestling now than it's ever been before, man. And most of it is the same shit. So I'm actually quite surprised if somebody catch my attention. And sometimes it happens. Like I'm surprised Calvin Tankman doesn't have a job yet. And that's what I'm talking about. Like you have people like, you just don't like good wrestling. It's like you like the same motherfuckers in one different flavor. Osprey and Omega, there's no real difference between the two of them. They're both lightweight AJ Styles. You know? The shit that AJ Styles was doing in 2006, they're doing today. You know, but AJ's older than they are, and he can't do that shit anymore. You know, like he can't do it no more. You know, if you talk about in-ring work, these guys are still getting smoked by Amazing Red. They can't keep up with him. I mean, get real, man. This is not the most innovative, fast-paced pro wrestling I've ever seen. I've seen better shit than Kenny Omega and Okada. You used to get better shit on Nitro. You talk about, you know, Lucha Libre or White Boy Lucha and that kind of stuff. You used to see better shit than that on Nitro. The thing is, they always lump up WWE to not having good wrestling. What happens is they usually do have good wrestlers on the show, but they're not nearly as interesting as the good characters on the show. People would rather see Santino and fuck around with Beth Phoenix than watch whatever Low Key or whatever the fuck. What was his name in WWE? Caval. It's a different context. You said Ike the Don says Roman versus Brock WrestleMania 31 trash build, great match. Yeah, that was a fun match. That was one of their better ones, actually. I think they had too many matches, to be honest. Here's another one. It says this is genuinely an insane thing to say. If people like this just go watch actual TV shows instead of check notes pro wrestling, this sort of mindset makes me wonder how wrestling fans view wrestling, because pro wrestling isn't pro wrestling without the deal in the ring. And he did not say get rid of the ring. He said fan connection is more important than trying to have a 5-star match. Media literacy in the toilet. Stone Mexican says bring back Jack Swagger to anger Meltzer. Oh my good lord. Ooh. Y'all want Jack Swagger back. Jack 1-2. Oh yeah. He was so funny. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I thought Jack Swagger might be a decent world champion. I'm gonna tell you why. Because of the eagle. At the time he was like Money in the Bank winner and all that, he had the Swagger soaring eagle, right? So he had like the mascot running around the ring with the wings and everything. And I thought, this is silly. It's super silly. It just might work. He's big. He's kind of dumb looking, but it might work if he goes into the silly guy stuff. You know, if he's a silly chicken shit heel, even at his size, it might work. And then he won the title and he became serious. And his serious was fake serious. And he became tall, chemically imbalanced Kurt Angle, and it wasn't good. It was terrible. That was one of the times when they should have just let him be silly. The smiling goofball. But he sounds like his IQ is in the 50s. That's just, and I didn't mind the We the People gimmick. I actually did like that. I thought that was legit. With Dutch Mantel, that was good. That was good heat too. And unfortunately, like Fox News and Weed busted that up. But I thought that had potential. But Jack Swagger, I'm not really a big fan. Again, character work, storylines matter. I don't like the guy. But if you have a good character and good storylines, I mean, what more can I say? The matches just have to be passable at that point, which usually they are. Phenomenal Ace says, wasn't El Santo's son in that famous tag match with Eddie Guerrero and Art Barr, one of the greatest tag team matches? I remember, I believe so. Oh shit, you talking about from AAA, the Mask versus Hair joint? Was that El Hijo del El Santo? I don't remember who the opponents were. I have not off the top of my head anyway. I have to Google it. Stone Mexican guy says old school luchadors were big celebrities. They used to do movies wearing their masks. There was El Santo versus the Wolf Man. Yeah, there was El Santo versus like zombies, and he was fighting vampires and shit. You know, like, and they made like tons of comic books with the same concept. You know, like they made a ton of money off this guy. It had nothing to do with fucking wrestling. Who else watches porn for the drama between the husband and wife before the plumber comes over? Huh? Well, look, that might interest some people. Some people are interested in that kind of stuff. That's why they have those kind of weird porn scenarios. You know, about people banging their stepsister and, you know, people, you know, being cuckolded by the neighbor and all that kind of stuff, because some people are interested in that. That's their fantasy. Just like people have a fantasy about beating up their boss at work. And then they watched the WWE and they saw Stone Cold Steve Austin beating up his boss. They have a fantasy of being the guy that gets the girl, you know, or being forgiven for being a mean jackass. And then they see that Randy Savage was forgiven by Miss Elizabeth. And everybody is crying, male and female. Because they were in, that was the culmination of a story. I mean, it's common sense, you know, like it's common sense, bro. It's nuts. Here's another one. Love the dude wearing a Dusty Sucks Egg shirt is telling you good wrestling doesn't matter. Like Meltzer's ratings don't matter, but he isn't the sole barometer of good wrestling or why it matters. Guess who was never considered a good wrestler? Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes was never considered a good wrestler. He was fat, for starters. All of his offense was basically you had to sell for him. Like, he'll sell for you for sure, but the bionic elbow, he plays with the crowd, dances a little bit. He was a showman. He wasn't fucking Nick Bockwinkel. And it doesn't matter. People love Dusty. And people love Dusty's matches. People love Dusty's promos. They love his character work. The idea that people did not consider Dusty Rhodes a good wrestler did not cross anybody's mind until the dirt sheet starts saying he wasn't a good wrestler. Like, the people love the Ultimate Warrior until the dirt sheets tell you that you're not supposed to like him. People look at how over Sid gets, and then the dirt sheet tells you you're not supposed to like him. Oh, Psycho Sid, he's one of the worst wrestlers I've ever seen. Meanwhile, Madison Square Garden is going nuts. They're melting over the guy. Who's right? So no matter how much I dislike the whole Jey Uso thing, if the people in the building are saying he's the guy, then he's the guy. That's kind of how I've took with the Orange Cassidy thing. I don't get it. It ain't for me. But if the people in the building say he's the man, he's the man. Until they smarten up and learn otherwise. Phenomenal A says, you know you got problems when you have your biggest AEW supporter, JD from New York, trashing Dynamite weekly. If you can't see the problems at hand, then fool me once, shame on you. You know what? I think a lot of that has to do with him being personally attacked by Tony Khan too. A lot of that has to do with him being attacked by Tony Khan. Gozy94 says Art did Tombstone Octagon, but Blue Panther, who was Octagon and Santos' second, gave him a piece of his own medicine, which caused Eddie and Santos to fight for the final fall. That match was 203 falls, wasn't it? I haven't seen that match in forever. He says even AJ Styles was in New Japan, he toned down his style by 80% and was still considered the best in the world at the time. The most he ever did was the 450 and Phenomenal Forearm. That is absolutely true. I noticed that near the end of his TNA run, AJ Styles stopped doing a lot of the stuff that he was doing earlier in his career. You know, the spinal tap or the spiral tap. He had stopped doing it. I think somebody had asked him why he stopped doing that stuff. It was like on social media. I don't remember what his answer was, but I remember people was asking him like why he didn't do that stuff anymore. And he's like, "Well, shit, don't need to." You know, how many more of these things should we do before I move on? Let's see. Let's find one that's a good one to end on. I thought that was Billy Zane. I was about to laugh my ass off. All these people are just completely and totally unoriginal. Okay, well, this one's funny. Little Dick Energy. Watch a fucking movie if you want to see cinema. Most movies aren't cinema. Most movies suck. Don't you get it? Most actors are mediocre to not good. He said he forgot how to do it. That's tremendous. But yeah, I remember when AJ Styles was the golden boy. When I was sitting on the bench, not really following wrestling too much, I was kind of poking my head in, and I was just hearing about how amazing AJ Styles was. And my brothers got me to watch it because Hall and Nash was on there. And very disappointing in Scott Hall's conditioning at the time. He was very not good. But I watched AJ Styles, and I was like, oh, he's doing too much. You know? It was just too much in the way of flips. But I got it. I understood why people liked him. He was extremely athletic. But I was just kind of like, similar to how I feel about, Ospreay now, about Omega. You can appreciate the athleticism, but it's not what you're looking for. He wasn't a larger-than-life character. He didn't have a big personality. So I was kind of like, he's fine, Kind of hated his guts a little bit because he seemingly won all the time. But I was like, you know what? It's fine. I didn't need to see all the saliva that people dumped all over him, but I got it. I mean, and they cycle through these highly athletic guys. They're usually pretty young. They come in, they do some really good flips, some cool moves. Dave Meltzer blows them up. Oh, they're so good. They're so good. But each generation becomes more performance, less wrestling. And the wrestling matches stopped looking like a fight. And that's why I say AJ Styles got over with me when he had the match with Samoa Joe. Because that was the first time he was involved in something that felt to me like he was in a fight. All right. And I was like, okay, he can do it. He just doesn't wrestle people that push him to that point. He keeps wrestling the Chris Sabins and all these X Division guys, and they just go out there and do masturbatory flips and shit. But if you put him in there with Kurt Angle or Samoa Joe or Heavens to Betsy, Jeff Jarrett, he knows how to do what they need him to do. And I was like, okay, that was good. And that's when I started to warm up to him, but it took a while. because I didn't see all that stuff. I had to go back and watch it eventually, because I didn't watch TNA pay-per-views until I think I got a couple of DVDs, and I still only got a couple. And then I got the best of AJ Styles DVD, and that's when I became a fan, really. Ospreay did tone down his style when he got pushed as a main event guy. He stopped doing a lot of the flips and stuff that he was doing before. He had drastically changed his style before he became world champion in New Japan, but it's not enough. He's still doing stagey bullshit matches. M Studio says HBK from the 90s was more athletic than he was in the 2000s. That is an example of someone adopting their style as they got older. Yeah, that was more important. You know, him adapting and learning how to work, the back injury, which, some people got aggravated because he's still working the back 8 years later. So what, you ass? Ric Flair was working the back 25 years later. Ric Flair still, my back taking hip bumps 25 years later. Timu says Workrate marks are leftists who think they are more intelligent and sophisticated than the masses. Story as old as time. Yeah, they don't like what normal people like. Normal people like, larger than life characters and personas and stuff. These guys are like, no, you have to like my highly specific, very niche kind of match. Get fucked. And I want to watch 45 minutes of Okada and Omega. I don't want to. All right. Rey Mysterio was the same way. The dude is 50 and can still go. That's why he's one of the best ever. Absolutely. Love him. Ospreay should treat his hidden blade like the Boombaye. Too much of his opponents are kicking out of it. Got me heated when you had Lance Archer kick out of it at one. That's because, again, that goes to ring psychology. They're trying to put over Lance Archer, but Lance Archer's going to lose. So just go ahead and beat him. There's no reason to really put a lot of effort into Lance Archer anyway, because nobody believes in him. Nobody has no belief in him. If it was Hobbs and you had spent a year building, let's say he hits the hidden blade on Bobby Lashley and Lashley kicks out at one, people will be like, oh shit, completely different than if you did it on Lance Archer. That's ring psychology. We've seen Lance Archer lose to everybody. We're not believing that he's some badass who's going to kick out of somebody's finisher at one. Bobby Lashley, however, especially if you go into that match unbeaten, yeah, I can see how it may take more than one to beat Bobby Lashley. It may take two. A guy like Brock Lesnar, I see why it might take more than one. But just because he's like, there's some big guys in AEW, but they're not booked strong at all. But I grew up watching guys like, Hulk could take a power driver and just get up. So I understand guys who work big, You power drive Hawk, you're just wasting your time. That's just kind of like I saw Sting, Warrior, and all these guys power up and get up and just start doing their thing. But not these kids, man. They don't understand none of that stuff. What on earth? Holy guacamole, brother. Timu said they think liking a Jey Uso is just capitalism or being tricked by capitalism. If these people were able to see the truth, they would understand how work rate wrestlers are better, because Jey is a product, whereas a work wrestler is art. But there's also art to what Jey did. Jey is not going to wrestle his way into your heart, but what he did was he had a compelling story arc where you actually start to like him as a person. So you care about the things that he does and the situations that he finds himself in because you care about him as a person. Oh my goodness. I just can't be on Twitter. It's titties all over the place. Holy hell. WG Phil says, how bad would business get for Triple H to fully realize the work rate champions like Gunther isn't the right way to do business? Well, he's got pretty much a platinum card where he can do whatever he wants. The tickets are already sold. The money is already made. Most of these shows are sold out before a card is even announced, which is good for him. And so therefore he doesn't really think too much about who he put the belt on. Eventually he'll get it, you know. But there has to be a midway point between work rate guy like Gunther, and look, I like Gunther, but get real, and complete and total flim flam artists like Jey Uso. And my whole thing is sometimes Jey Uso's flim flam don't even work in terms of people are very involved with the character and everything, but sometimes they don't even give you anything to be involved about. You know? Wait a minute, what's happening now? Huh. Well, that ought to be interesting. Let's see how that works out. Phenomenal Ace said AJ Styles once said one of his favorite matches was against Tanahashi during one of the G1s because of the in-ring psychology work. It wasn't just the moves, but the selling throughout. That's a very important element that is lost on today's generation of wrestling fan. They completely forgot that you're supposed to sell these moves, that these things are not supposed to just look pretty, they're supposed to hurt. And you're not supposed to just, sleepwalk into a clothesline or, make it look earned. But they don't know how to do that stuff either. They don't know anything about pro wrestling. They just think they do. Big Armada says Roman getting speared by Breaker at the Rumble just to recover in 5 seconds and eliminate Breaker at the Rumble kind of pissed me off. I get that it's Roman, but still. Yeah, it was kind of like they didn't want to, bring Roman down too far. They wanted to give the little guy something. But ultimately, they had to remind him of his place in the pecking order. They're such assholes. But, I mean, gotta take what you can get. You gotta take what you can get, man. You said Jay doesn't have his own moveset that works along with the character, if that makes sense. He says, if I'm watching a Jimmy Uso match instead of watching a Jey Uso match outside of the Yeet Punch. I know what you mean. And you know what? It's not wrong either. There's a really good it's a really good point to make in terms of these guys have to learn how to have certain moves that they can do. I remember that Jey Uso did a Hurricane Rana in the Royal Rumble and that shit went viral, which was kind of stupid. It was kind of stupid, if we're being honest. M Studio says, do you think Gunther is less believable sometimes when he has 50-50 long matches with smaller guys like Ilya Dragunov and Tyler Bate? No, because if the smaller guy is positioned well and the smaller guy is booked well, then it works out fine. If the smaller guy is showing some true grit, then it works out fine. And that's the thing with Ilya, is that a lot of those matches have grit. They have character, the story that they told when Gunther beat Ilya in NXT UK was phenomenal. It was actually very fucking good, but you just don't get enough of that. Just don't get enough. All right, y'all. I appreciate you guys standing by. Thank you guys for showing up, and sorry for showing up late. Considering I'm not going to be working Fridays for a while, I'll probably be able to do these a little bit longer. Maybe I'll start at 8 o'clock on time this time. But thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later.